order. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Trent.
Here.
Coleman.
Here.
Arthur. Beck.
Here.
Brown. Carter. Fitzwater. Gannon.
Here.
Razer. Rowden. Thompson Raider.
Present.
All right, excellent. We will begin with Senator Black, the public hearing for Senate Bill 1056. Please proceed when ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Rusty Black, and I represent the 12th Senate District. Senate Bill 1056 increases the maximum gross income for eligibility for the Fast Track Workforce Incentive Grant from $80,000 to $100,000 for taxpayers who are married and filing jointly, and from $40,000 to $50,000 for all other taxpayers. Additionally, Senate Bill 1056 allows for these limits to be adjusted annually based on inflation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you for that very brief explanation. Questions for the bill sponsor from the committee?
I was instructed to be brief. We know that's hard for me at times.
Well, it's certainly appreciated. Seeing no questions for the bill sponsor, thank you again. Witnesses here to testify in support of Senate Bill 1056. Please come forward, make sure you fill out a witness card, and proceed when ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Taylor Sokup with the Department of Higher Education and Workforce Development. First, I would just like to thank Senator Black for carrying this piece of legislation. This bill is one of the department's priorities this session. Fast Track is one of our need-based student financial aid programs, and we believe if the salary thresholds are increased this year and increased annually for inflation based on the Consumer Price Index, we can continue to serve the target population for this program. Thank you.
Questions for this witness? Yes, Senator Thompson Raider.
Thank you. So do you have some matrix showing like the age groups that have utilized this funding and what career paths they're on and just some different information? Could you get that to my office just in the next day or so?
Yes, I have a one-pager I can share with you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Further witnesses testify in support. Please proceed when ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Chris Ropey. I'm here on behalf of the Missouri Community College Association. We are very supportive of this legislation and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Further witnesses in support.
Good morning. Katie Gamble here on behalf of the independent colleges and universities of Missouri. I want to go on record in support of the legislation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Next witness in support.
Good morning. Kara Corchis on behalf of the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry, also in support. And to answer Senator Rader's question on some demographic data, it's 63% female are utilizing the program. And the top programs are healthcare, business accounting, computer science, and education. Healthcare is obviously a huge need for the state, so it's great to see the utilization in that area. And beyond the certificates or degrees, this program is also applicable to apprenticeships, which we are very supportive of, so individuals can earn as they learn on the job. So again, wide application, very supportive of it in its initial passage and its continued reauthorization, and happy to support Senator Black's bill today.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness? Yes, Senator Rader.
Do you have the ages?
I do not have the ages. The department probably does.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Further questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you again for being here. Further witnesses in support?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Brent Hemphill. I'm here on behalf of the Missouri Ambulance Association. I want to go on record in support of the bill. We're really struggling to find folks to go into the EMT paramedic world. This is a very nice step to help incentivize folks to get continued education and become paramedics and EMTs around the state. We actually do some of the training that's approved. So we just want to go on record and support the bill.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Further witnesses in support?
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Paul Wagner representing the Council on Public Higher Education, just going on record in support. We'll just answer Senator Rader's questions one witness at a time. There's a unique age demographic in fast track because you either have to be, I think like 23 years old, or have not earned a bachelor's degree and been out of the previous higher education experience for a certain period of time. So it's not a traditional age student. It's for older folks who probably have some college and no degree for them to go back and finish their credentials. So I'm sure the department will get more detailed information on that, but I wanted to offer that much.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Further witnesses in support? Seeing none. Are the witnesses here to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 1056? Please proceed when ready.
Good morning. Lisa Panett here with Armorvine. We are opposed to these type of things because they're not the right function of government. And also when you receive grants, then you also have to comply with any rules that might come. So with those dollars come strings that could be applied to those workers. So if, for instance, it was a healthcare worker, then they would need to follow all the rules and comply with those rules in order to not have to automatically pay back those grants. And so we're concerned with what strings might come. And that's all.
Thank you for that testimony. Questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you again for being here. Further witnesses in opposition? Seeing none. Any witnesses here to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none. That will conclude. Senator, do you have any closing remarks?
I was going to use the words thank you.
Thank you for that. And that will conclude the public hearing on Senate Bill 1056. We will next proceed to a public hearing for Senate Bill 1153. Senator Mosley, you may proceed when ready.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair and committee members. I'm Senator Angela Walton Mosley, representing the 13th Senatorial District. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to bring this bill before you. This bill is SB1153. This act requires the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to conduct annual safety assessments of all public schools in the state. The Department of Public Safety shall assist DESE in implementing the provisions of the Act, and DESE may also seek assistance from Missouri Center of Education Safety. The safety assessment shall include a consideration of each school's vulnerabilities to school shootings and intruders, with specific reference to the implementation of various safety measures, policies, and tools specified in the Act. Based upon the findings of the safety assessments, DESE shall provide each school a report that summarizes each school's safety vulnerabilities along with recommendations for mitigation such vulnerabilities. This bill came about because of a school shooting a couple of years ago, which was my alma mater. It was very traumatic for all of us that attended school there. At the time, the principal there also was a schoolmate of mine. And we got together with another schoolmate who is a Homeland Security person who decided that we all work together to come up with this bill because of the vulnerabilities of the school, and we don't want this to happen to any other school in Missouri. and I'll take any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Questions for this witness from the, or this bill sponsor from the committee? Seeing none. Witnesses in support. Senate Bill 1153. Please come forward, make sure you fill out a witness card, and proceed when ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Dr. Casey Shaheed. I started my educational career 24 years ago when my daughter was 4 weeks old, and I started as a substitute teacher at Roosevelt. Excuse me. At Roosevelt High School. I have a business degree, and my desire was to own my own business. At 4 weeks old, I started substitute teaching to supplement my income and to spend time with my daughter. Hence, I couldn't find any other work. After being a part of Roosevelt High School, I soon realized I was just in shock with what I saw from an educational standpoint. I later went on to get my certification, and I taught business education. I was a DECA coordinator, and then I later was a member of the New Leaders Cohort, which was an accelerated principal program. I was also the founding principal of the Big Picture School, which was started in St. Louis Public Schools under the leadership of Diana Borisoff. Fast forward, my ultimate dream was to be principal of Central Visual and Performing Arts, my alma mater. My number one priority was to ensure a safe and orderly environment the same way that I felt my principal did, Dr. Rosalind England. And although those were big shoes to fill, I took it with a badge of honor. A lot of pressure, of course, from my fellow classmates who said things like, I know you're going to run the school just like Dr. England. Well, it was 20 years later, and of course I couldn't. But I took pride in being the principal and being able to make a difference to children that look just like me and from the same communities just like I was. On October the 24th, 2022, I went to the gym at 4:35 a.m. and completed my boot camp. I arrived to campus at around 6:45 a.m. I was greeted by a parent at around 7 a.m. and by 9:08, 9:11, we were greeted with a former student with the AR-15. Not many people even encountered this student. I had the unfortunate opportunity to see him, to see the gun, and to still be standing before you. I do not take that experience lightly. I am not just here for just because, and I do believe that I'm still here because there is more work to be done. And if I use my voice, use me as a vessel, then so be it. This is actually the very first time that I've been in a panel of such. I am a part of the Principal Recovery Network, a very unfortunate group, and we are principals who have survived a school shooting, and there aren't many, and there aren't anyone who looks like me. I am a member with, you heard of the schools Columbine, Sandy Hooks, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, to name a few. We are all now colleagues and friends. We are affiliated with the National Association of Secondary School Principals. In January 17th of 2024, we arrived back in the building after the school shooting. On January 18th, the very next day, I went out on leave. It was at that moment that I believe the district realized that they had not given me the proper support as a school leader and gave me an opportunity to, quote unquote, heal. I was not prescribed with any type of steps to heal. There was no diagnosis other than PTSD, of course, related to the trauma. So for 2 months, I stayed at home. I went to the gym. I was in therapy. I did EMDR therapy, and I was totally stressed with my school community who was worried about me. I came back on March the 4th on my own. I came back to advocate for the students and staff of Central Visual Performing Arts. What did that look like? I told the district that we needed to have 4-day work weeks, and they had moved too fast with us. No one else was advocating. Everyone asked me what did I think should happen. I was a victim. I should not have had that burden on me. The days and the weeks that went by was me assessing the environment of Central Vision Performing Arts. I, as a lay person, recognize so many vulnerabilities as after the shooting. And I know you all were following the news, and you heard things like, you heard me say we had wonderful paint and the doors were replaced. You never heard me say security systems were replaced, doors were replaced, like exterior doors. So the vulnerability were still there after January, after March. No one from the Department of Elementary, Secondary Education, from the Capitol, from the Department of Cyber and Security, no one came to visit us. And I beg the question, was it because I was an African-American woman, we were in an urban school district, and I was the only one of the Principal Recovery Network survivors that looked like me? Is that why no one came to check on us? My staff was 98% white. The people, no one knew this. No one knows this now. And I believe if people knew this, would they have showed up differently for us? And I asked the same question when I went to D.C. What does advocacy look like in an urban school district? Because the profile of a school shooter changed on October the 24th. It is no longer trench coat, affluent, Caucasian, with some obvious mental health issues. This was an African-American male, and people want the shooter to be white they really did you have two shooters? Wasn't he white? No, he was black, and he was a former student. And there were not obvious mental health conditions that we could see. I am here in support of Senate Bill 1153 because I truly believe that if vulnerability and threat assessments are performed regularly and schools are held accountable, then we can be more prepared for such incidents that may happen, and they will. It's not when, but it's not will they happen, it's when. And we are not prepared today, and I want to be on record saying that. So when you saw the news, if you were paying attention, I resigned on June the 22nd. The news outlets have reached out multiple times to ask me why. I just told you why. If my number one priority was to create a safe and orderly environment, how can I do that if we have not changed and we are not held accountable to improving our safety measures? 360 cameras, doors. He shot through a locked door, yes. And so one might say, well, can you really prevent? We can. Because when I sat next to Sandy Hook's principal, she says we have the same windows like this, and we were in the White House. That meant they have bulletproof windows. And they have what they call swatting calls. These are people who call to say, hey, we're going to shoot the school up. They know when they're not, that they're not true. I said, how do you know? She said, our campus is too secure. We know no one's in the building. She knows without a shadow of a doubt. I did not know without a shadow of a doubt. In March, in April, May, and June when I made my decision. And I sat in my office in June. June the 15th was my birthday, and I turned 50 years old. And I had my door locked. Safety and security was not in the building. All of the teachers were gone. My secretary was gone. It was just myself and the custodians as they prepared the building for the summer. And every noise, I would jump. Every noise, I would go and I would look in the hallway. And then I began to walk the hallways to make sure no one was there. We had a front door that if you pulled it really hard, it opens. This was in June. That's just, I'm giving you an example, not to throw St. Louis Public under the bus, but we're not the only school. If we're not held accountable to improving our safety measures and those vulnerability assessments, then my concern is that we'll have someone else in the same position. And they may not be as self-aware as I am. I told you I went to the gym at that, and now it doesn't look like I work out all the time, but I went to the gym on that day, and I had a lot of clarity. People says, well, how did you know? I believe in a higher power. I locked the school down because I listened to my safety officer when he said, he told someone and they told me, and I didn't question it. And that did save some lives. But having those drills is one thing, and we were practicing drills, so that we did have that in place. But those vulnerability assessments with exterior doors and campus access, and we have a gate that's on the Arsenal Kings Highway side. It's still there. You can climb the gate. You're in the campus. Our interior doors inside the courtyard did not lock, ever. If Orlando wanted to come in at 5 o'clock that morning, he could have scaled the fence, been in the school, and waited for multiple people, waited for us to get there. He didn't have to shoot through the door. That's just one example. And I know we're not alone. And you're hearing the reports of violent acts happening in schools daily, weekly. in the region and outside of the region. And I urge the Department of Elementary Secondary Education and members of the committee to please hold us accountable. We are willing to be in the trenches. I have not shied away from the work. I'm an assistant superintendent now in the Cahokia School District, and I want to be at the table around policy and procedures and practices. And I'm just asking for your support of just one. This is just one little pebble that we can throw in the water and it'll make some waves. So this won't end all violent and traumatic events, but I do think being prepared is the first start. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none, thank you again for being here and sharing that with us this morning. Further witnesses here to testify in support? Seeing none, are any witnesses here to testify in opposition? Senate Bill 1153. Please proceed when ready.
Lisa Panett with Armorvine. The concerns are legitimate concerns, and so we share those concerns. However, the solution should rest in local control that we talk about a lot, and each one should have their own independence to decide what they want to do locally. And if we're giving over an assessment, who are we giving it to? So we know that these things are vulnerable, so we could potentially have some kind of a data breach and someone finds out exactly everyone's individual plans. And that's why local control is the best, that all these problems could have been addressed locally, and they can partner with whoever they choose to partner with to create solutions. So we just believe that local control is the best solution.
Thank you for that testimony. Any questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none, thank you again for being here. Further witnesses testify in opposition, 1153. Seeing none, any witnesses here to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none. Senator, do you have any closing remarks?
I want to thank you all for hearing this bill today and taking account Dr. Shahid's words here. Someone who's actually in the building facing the gunman face on, staring the gun down. Listen to her. You don't want this to happen to your own kids. You don't want this to happen to your parent, your sister, brother, niece, nephew. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. That will conclude the public hearing on Senate Bill 1153. I see Senator Koenig has come in. We will next have a public hearing for Senate Bill 1208. Senator may proceed when ready.
Thank you, members of the committee. Senator Andrew Koenig from the 15th District here to present Senate Bill 1208. This bill is dealing with DESE. All it does is eliminate 50 copies that they are required to print and keep in their office. They can put it on their website. If someone requests a copy, they can obviously print it up there. So that's pretty simple. That's all it does.
All right, thank you for that presentation. Any questions for the bill sponsor from the committee? Yes, Senator Brown.
So this eliminates 50 copies. What is
Yeah, so
50
basically
copies?
every year they just have to print these copies and hold it in their office.
Copies of what?
Their annual report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Further questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none, are any witnesses here to testify in support Senate Bill 1208? Seeing none, are any witnesses here to testify in opposition Senate Bill 1208? Seeing none, are any witnesses here to testify for informational purposes only? Please come forward and proceed when ready.
Lisa Panett again with Armorvine. The only thing that we would have to say is in addition to, so that, and there's nothing in here that says that they have to print out a printed copy for them. So we agree with putting it on the website. I think that's common sense. But then also it would be in addition to, so if somebody wanted a hard copy, they were able to get it. So I'm sure.
Yes, Senator Coleman.
Thank you for your testimony. Why do you not believe the local school district should be able to decide whether or not they print out a copy?
Well, this is DESE. It's not the local. It's not the local. So we're already saying that DESE has to do it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here today. Any further witnesses to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none, that will conclude public hearing on Senate Bill 1208. We will next proceed to the public hearing for Senate Bill 1203. Senator Coleman, please proceed when ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mary Elizabeth Coleman, Senator for the 22nd Senatorial District. And this is a transparency bill. It requires that certain materials be published online. Where available, that those should be published. I'm sorry, I'm pulling out my bill. Those should be published available original materials. There's a lot of concern. Last year, this body voted off of the floor of Senate Bill 4, asking that certain materials be made available to parents so they know what's being taught in the classroom. And this is a slightly different take on that. It's wanting to make sure that all school districts, including charter schools, have to ensure that information on non-discrimination, diversity, equity, inclusion, and bias shall all be publicly posted on the school website so that people are able to see it. There are copyright protections in place so that we're not asking school districts to violate those copyright requirements, but to the best available, they're able to put them forward. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none. Witnesses here to testify in support. Senate Bill 1203. Please proceed when ready.
Lisa Panett with Armorvine. We just want to come and support. We think this is very good legislation.
Very good. Any questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you again for being here. Further witnesses testify in support. 1203. Seeing none. Any witnesses here testify in opposition to Senate Bill 1203? Please make sure you fill out a witness card and proceed when ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Senator Coleman. I'm Jeff Smith, representing the ACLU this morning. The First Amendment protects the right to share and receive ideas, including ideas about sensitive topics like race and gender that have played a key role in our nation's history. Using the law to discourage honest and candid discussion about these topics doesn't seem to be in accordance with these principles of free speech that I think we all revere. In K-12 education, bills like this overstep state government's authority to regulate curriculum, which we believe is the proper role of local school boards, which are elected by and are closest to district parents. A fear of retaliation can create a chilling effect that leads teachers to self-censor and potentially prevent exposure to broader perspectives that will help equip children to succeed in an increasingly diverse world. The ACLU's long supported transparency in education, but some parental rights bills seem to be less about transparency than they are about undermining efforts at inclusive education and really overburdening educators and public school districts. And for that reason, we oppose Senate Bill 1203.
Thank you for that testimony. Any questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none. Further witnesses testify in opposition. Seeing one. Please proceed when ready.
Excuse me. I'm David Lee Brush with the Missouri Equity Education Partnership Action, and we oppose this bill for a few reasons. Curriculum, as has been stated, for the diversity and equity and inclusion, as well as discussion of race and gender, are necessary to help students learn how to interact with other people in an appropriate way sometimes, and this bill would have, I hate the words, but it would have a chilling effect. I prefer self-censorship. That's what it's going to do, is censor curriculum. Second, this is government overreach. We're particularly concerned about the part where it says the Attorney General has review capability over the curriculum. We are concerned that an Attorney General, particularly our current Attorney General, may not have the pedagogical background in curriculum design and instruction to know what is appropriate curricularly or not. This bill also runs up against federal law. Districts have a charge under Title III and their LAO plans to provide cultural competency training to their staffs and to their students. And sometimes they are formally designed lessons written by educational experts in a variety of areas. And sometimes it's just a simple, hey, let me tell you about this aspect of something. And it's not formal, and we're afraid that because of that, first of all, it's going to violate federal guidelines in Title III and the Dear Colleague letter expressed therein, and also that it will prevent teachers from giving those little impromptu lessons because they'll think, oh my gosh, did I put that on the website? Now I have to put it on the website and create this lesson, which leads to another problem we have with it. It's just one more way to burden teachers. We do not have to, having every single resource available for parental review is burdensome, and it's unnecessary, and it leads us to our final concern, which is that the underlying message of this bill and bills like it, taken in conjunction with other bills before both bodies in this building, it feels like just another gig against teachers and educators, that we're not trusted to be able to do the job that we are trained after years of experience to do. We're not saying parents don't have rights. We're not saying parents don't have rights to know, and we're not saying parents aren't doing the best they can with their children. We're not saying that at all. We're saying that, you know, my son had appendicitis. I had my appendix removed. I knew enough to take him to the hospital because I recognized the signs and symptoms, but I wasn't going to do the surgery just because I'd been a patient. And sometimes people think that they can be teachers just because they've been to school, and that's not true. Sometimes there is actual intention and expertise behind the lessons that we put out that, taken out of context, can be dangerous. And the current climate in Missouri, it is. The fact that teachers are going to put their names on individual lesson plans, any other time in my teaching career, which started in 1988, I would be like, okay, I'm proud of my lesson. This is a great lesson. I'm happy to share it with other people. But in this climate, I would be like, I do not need my name on this lesson because all that's going to do is put a target on my back, and I do not want to have to spend time and resources defending myself against something that we will all find out I didn't need to defend myself against, to people who don't trust me. And that's what's going to happen. It is going to be absolutely what they said, a chilling effect. So for those reasons, the Missouri Equity Education Partnership opposes this bill. I also have testimony as an individual that's slightly different, that talks about some personal experiences I had in my teaching career and why, you know, to give more illustration. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate you leaving that with us. Questions for this witness? Yes, Senator Beck.
Thank you for your testimony. And you touched on one of the things I have a real issue with in this bill is giving the Attorney General even more power than he currently has. Can you hear me?
Not really. Sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you.
You touched on the Attorney General, giving him more power than he currently has. And as we've watched the last two Attorney Generals, they've used their office to run for higher office, and in this case, running for his office again, but he was appointed. And we've seen them take one side and try these things out in social media with no basis for anything. And it'll be troublesome for me to give him even more power to go to give legal opinions on DEI and some other things here too. That's frustrating for me in general, because what we've seen is that office has been abused, and actually the powers are not even spelled out in the Constitution, so we're going to give him more power to abuse that office. So I do agree with you there. I also think that if this were to become law, that we should also include all private schools, anywhere where public money goes. Anywhere where public money goes, they should be the exact same exact same things, accountability that's here, or whatever we want to call this, that should also go into wherever we have public money going. So that would be an amendment that would probably have to be put on this bill, and make sure that these things are all, that they would have to post it, and they would have to and I'm opposed to the bill in general, but if we're going to do it, it should be fair across the board.
Well, and thank you. I meant to make the point about the private schools also, but I'm not a morning person. I kind of forgot. So thank you for making that point.
And the EAOs and all those things, we would need to have an open look at all these organizations. So thank you.
Our biggest concern with the bill is the potential targeting of teachers because, DEI is kind of under attack already, and they think that it's, I hate the word, but they think it's woke, and that isn't really the flex and insult people think it is. I'm happy to be woke. I'm happy to be enlightened, but that's where the attacks are going to come from, and it's going to put another target on our back, on educators' backs in an unfair way. And then again, there's already an agency to oversee policy, and it also takes away local control because ultimately local boards have the approval and review capability for their districts. So the Attorney General, while it makes sense that he would be the enforcement agent, possibly because he's the Attorney General, and that's laws enforcing things or that, but the review part of it, I mean, the enforcement part's a little sketchy to me, but the review component is very, very troublesome, and not just because of this Attorney General or the last few. We don't have a crystal ball to see who will be in that seat in the future.
No, and I agree with you. And any policy that you put that is personnel dependent is a problem. If you do policy that works no matter who you have in office, then that's something you want to look at. I truly believe that for sure. So thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Senator Thompson-Rader.
Thank you. I have a question. So tell me again who you said that you're with.
Missouri Equity Education Partnership Action.
Got it. And who is that? A state-run?
It is a Missouri Equity Education Partnership, started a few years ago as a 501c3 grassroots volunteer organization. It is all volunteer. Then we realized that we needed to branch out and recently started the action side of that, which is a 501c4.
Got it.
So that's who it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So earlier you said you was worried that this would have a chilling effect on free speech. Who is exactly free speech do you think this would chill?
I think that, I didn't say on free speech. That was the ACLU witness that said free speech. I think it's going to have a chilling effect. It's going to require teachers to censor themselves. For example, my first year teaching in Bismarck, there was a student of mixed race in the school. And he was the only student of color in the district. It was a small district. It only had, I think, maybe 400 kids in the whole district. And in 1988, the kids were calling him the N-word on a regular basis. I did not grow up in Bismarck. That was not how I was raised. My father taught at Lincoln and HBCU. That word was anathema to me. And so I wrote him up. And there was no code in the disciplinary thing to say racism or anything like that. I wrote it up as obscene language. And the principal told me then that I couldn't do that because it was a matter of opinion in our area. We use that language here. And that was 1988. Today, if that happened, and it was the permeating attitude of the district, which I'm not saying it is. Bismarck's changed. I'm not saying that. But we would be able to do some professional development to explain to people that's not okay, or be able to talk to kids and say, hey, that's not language that we use.
And what about this bill do you think would prevent you from doing that now?
That right now, because of the idea that we can't talk about race or gender or anything else in schools because
but what about this bill do you believe would prevent you from having that professional development that you just described that you would want to do?
Because there is a target on DEI, and if and the lessons are perfectly fine, but sometimes parents take things out of context and they read it online and they're like, well, we can't do this, it's too woke, we can't teach that, and pretty soon we're not able to teach anything about how to interact with each other on a human level, and then we have
But you can't point to part of the bill that would prevent you from doing that.
well, I can point to the part of the bill that is going to have parents saying, you can't teach this, and then that's going to lead teachers to go, you know what, I don't even need that noise, I'm not going to say anything.
What part of the bill would cause parents to somehow try to stop this kind of professional development? I'm still not following where in the bill that you believe this problem would arise. And that's okay if you don't have an answer right now. You can follow up with the committee.
I have an answer. I'm just not making myself, I'm not able to make myself clear on it. I think that what's going to happen is that, so parents get, the thing I've heard mentioned over and over again is we can't have the privilege walk, we can't talk about racism, we can't talk about race, we can't do DEI, we can't teach about racism, and we have to teach that everybody's equal, there's no bias anywhere. That's what some of the bills are saying. And
Well, I'm sorry, but I don't.
This bill is not taken in isolation. It has to look, you have to look at it in conjunction with all the other bills around. And so if you've got this bill over here saying you can't teach this, and this bill saying we're going to put this online, and parents go, I want to see what kind of race, what kind of nonsense my school's teaching, and then they come in and complain about it, then teachers are going to be like, I don't want to get complaints about what I'm teaching. And I'm not really teaching anything wrong, but parents aren't understanding that sometimes you have to teach things in the context of race and gender. You have to.
That still hasn't answered the question, but that's fine. And for the sake of brevity, if you,
I'm happy to try and explain it offline.
that might be better if you could confine. I mean, I understand that you're worried about a large variety of bills, but this hearing is on this bill,
which is not in a vacuum.
Oh, well, nothing's in a vacuum. We're firmly in an atmosphere. So, any further questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you again for that testimony. Any further witnesses to testify in opposition, Senate Bill 1203? Seeing none, any witnesses here testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none, that will conclude the public hearing on Senate Bill 1203. And I believe we will next go Senate public hearing for Senate Bill 882, and I believe Senator Arthur is going to present. So please proceed when ready.
I'm pleased and a little surprised to be presenting this bill on behalf of Senator Razer, so I will do my best to explain it. In 2019, the legislature passed a law that prohibited public school districts from starting their school year sooner or earlier than 14 days prior to the first Monday in September. Charter schools, which are public schools, were not included in that requirement, and so now we're seeing schools within the same area in Kansas City and St. Louis with different start dates, and often families will send one kid to a local public school or traditional public school and their other son or daughter to a charter school, and it's made it difficult on families to have those different start dates and to try and adjust those schedules. So this would just allow the school districts where charters operate the flexibility to start so that the charters and public schools can sync up and start on the same day. Clear as mud. Any questions?
Thank you for that presentation. Any questions for the bill sponsor? The substitute bill sponsor. Seeing none, thank you again for being willing to present. Witnesses here testify in support. Please come forward and proceed when ready.
Hello. My name is Jamaica Kendricks, and I traveled 2 hours to testify for the Muddy Bill. I am a member of the Kansas City Public Schools Board of Education, and so I'm coming to present as that, but also as a parent. Like many of you, I got involved because I have a kid, or I had two kids who were involved in the public education system, and I was trying to navigate it. As I became more involved, I realized what an impact state legislature has on education, and I became an advocate. So today, I am here in support of the school start date bill. And I wanted to say that the main reasons that I am supporting it is because I believe that this will empower parents to be able to navigate our system more effectively. I'm going to give you some examples from me as a parent navigating that system. So, and my children are both graduated now. I have a 19-year-old daughter and a 24-year-old son. So, when my children were in school, my daughter, she started kindergarten, and the charter schools were able to start a lot sooner than traditional public schools. So I enrolled my daughter in a charter school for 2 weeks. Because my son was in that charter school, and that was the school I intended to keep him in, and I didn't have anyone to watch my daughter at home, and I needed to work. So my daughter went to school for 2 weeks, and then she shifted to the traditional public school that I wanted her in after they were able to open. Now, as a parent, I do know that this disrupted classrooms. The original classroom she was in that she left, that would be a disruption when they have students leaving 2 weeks in as that teacher is trying to get their culture set. The other issue I had when my son made it to middle school, he was able to stay at home and watch my daughter. But sometimes, because our start dates are different, that also affects breaks and things. And so if my son was not on break when my daughter was, guess what? He had to miss school sometimes because I wasn't able to stay home and he needed to. So that also affected the attendance at the school that he was at. And also, well, not so much because I'm a very hard parent, so my kids always had homework even when the schools didn't give it and I was pushing them. But for parents who are not able to do that, that also impacts your students' ability to be able to get what they need in the classroom. And then as a board member now of Kansas City Public Schools, I also think it has an effect on us as far as our ability to compete. When charter schools were introduced in Kansas City, the thought was that if we have these other schools that don't have the same restrictions and they begin to compete with public schools, then everybody will kind of rise up because we're trying to compete. But when we don't have a level playing field, or when we have different rules for the different school systems, then it makes it difficult for that competition to produce the result we want. And I think we see that in the results that we've had because we've had charter schools in our system for over 20 years, and we haven't seen those significant improvements in student outcomes that we expected. So again, I am here in support of this bill because I think it would really help empower our parents to be able to navigate the system more effectively and enable our traditional public schools and our charter schools to compete on a level playing field. Thank you.
Thank you for that testimony. Senator Thompson-Rader.
Hey, I just want to say thank you for coming because you giving your personal stories really does clarify and shed light on what the issue is. And you're pretty good at this, so you might, consider doing it.
Further questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none. No, you were right to start moving on out. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today. Further witnesses to testify in support Senate Bill 882. Please proceed when ready.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Branch Shields on behalf of the Missouri School Boards Association. Just want to go on record in support of this bill. Again, evening the playing field in the districts that do have charter schools in there, just make sure everybody's playing by the same set of rules.
Questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Further witnesses in support? Any witnesses here in opposition? Please proceed when ready.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Kaina Iman on behalf of the Missouri Canoe and Floaters Association and Missouri Association of to those same regulations as other schools throughout the state. Our main concern is we employ a lot of high school kids, and they work at our campgrounds, at our outfitters. And so when school starts earlier or football practice starts earlier, as you know, that takes them away from their jobs. It causes us to shut down in the height of our season. And then we also have some statistics that show that our businesses have increased by over 40% in just the month of August since the school date has been pushed back closer to Labor Day. So it has had an economic impact on our industry. So happy to answer any questions.
Questions for this witness from the committee? Yes, Senator Thompson Rader.
Hey, thank you. I know I'm full of questions today. Okay, so with this bill, so you're saying that it's doing more than just requiring those school districts to start at the same time? That this is changing to where we're not able to do the later? Like if both schools, if the Kansas City Public School and the Kansas City Charter Schools decided to both start later, which then is what you advocate for.
That's how we would see evening the playing field, is bringing them in line with the current districts.
Gotcha. Okay. I just wanted to be sure I was seeing the difference between what the bill requires versus just starting at the same time. And I know Greg's not here, and so I'll chat with him after on this, but thank you.
Yeah.
Further questions for this witness? Senator Beck.
Yes. I might be able to help you answer your question a little bit too. So if you remember, we were in the House when this bill first went through in 2019, and it tried to go through by itself, the start date change originally, and it couldn't make on its own, so it was put into an omnibus bill that I actually ended up voting for, and I kind of regret that to this day. But it was in a transfer school bill that was sponsored by one of the senators, and so they changed the start date to the 14 days, that you couldn't start before the 14 days. I guess what would happen was charters were left out of that equation, so they currently start earlier. They start earlier. They do that a lot, and it's one of the things they use, excuse me, to entice families saying, hey, we have a different start date. So I think it's definitely only fair that St. Louis Public and Kansas City Public are able to start on the same footing as the charter school for sure. I personally think that the start date needs to be changed across the board, but and I know we disagree with that, but I just wanted to kind of shed light, and hopefully that helps the senator a little bit if she remembers.
Further questions for this witness? Seeing none. Further witnesses in opposition? Seeing none. Any witnesses here for informational purposes only? Senate Bill 882. Seeing none, that will conclude the public hearing for Senate Bill 882, and with no further business coming before the committee, we are adjourned.